Welcome into Suits and Laterals, episode 3. We're just dealing with some technical difficulties, so this is actually the second take. I'm Mitch Gatsky, joined by my co-host, Evan Skilleter. Ev, let's hope this works this time.
Yeah, Suits and Laterals 3.1.
We just lost about 20 minutes of the show, so hopefully the second time through is just as good as the first, because I think we were working on a pretty good show.
So, yeah, this one will be even better. Anyway, I'd just like to start off and just read out an email, actually, that a listener sent us after week one. It's about Colin Kaepernick. It's not a topic that we really want to get into on this show, at least this week. But I do want to read the email and acknowledge the listener. His name's John. Acknowledge his email and say thank you for listening and for your input. So I'll read this real quick. He says that you're both right in saying that Colin has the right to sit down during the national anthem. I do feel it is disrespectful, but I am far more bothered by the fact that it was Colin Kaepernick. This is a guy who was fined for calling a Bears player a racial slur on the field. He then goes into a press conference wearing a shirt with Fidel Castro on it. How can this be the same guy that feels so compelled to stand up for minorities being oppressed that he sits down during the national anthem? Many athletes have worn shirts that say, "I can't breathe," "Hands up, don't shoot." They've walked out of the tunnel with their hands in the air or simply spoken out on social media and in press conferences. Plenty of awareness is brought to these issues based on those actions. In Cap's case, the path that he chose brought less attention to the Black Lives Matter movement and more attention to a majority of the NFL completely being against him. NFL fans, for the most part, are beer-drinking, chicken wing-eating, patriotic individuals. Military tributes, flyovers, America the Beautiful before the Super Bowl, sports and patriots go hand in hand. The reason that you don't hear the anthem on a daily basis is because you are rarely in a large enough group to do so. Moments of silence don't happen on the city bus or even in most workplaces. When it comes down to it, the only thing that every person in this country has in common is that we are all, for the most part, American citizens. So, thank you, John. Those are great points. We appreciate you listening. It's not something we're really going to get into today, but like we said, we appreciate you listening and hope you continue to do so. Mitch, what a great weekend of NFL football.
We got real football to talk about. That's why we don't have to talk about Kaepernick or any of the off-field stuff. We have football to break down. Let's get right into it. First game of the 2016 season was just about a week ago. Broncos come away with a 21-20 victory over the Panthers. And there were some questions about how the officials handled some hits to the head of Cam Newton. What did you see, and what do you think?
Yeah, so there were definitely a lot of shots to Cam Newton's head. I would say maybe three that I can remember, three really hard shots to his head, and I think two of those were definitely intentional. These are NFL players that, they're professionals, right? And they've been taught their whole lives to hit low, especially a big player like that. So anytime you see a defensive player go helmet to helmet with Newton, you can almost guarantee that it's an intentional hit to the head. And it was definitely unfortunate to see that. And I felt badly for Newton, and I also didn't like the way that not only the officials handled it, but the Panthers staff as well.
I think the NFL is such a joke. I mean, they put in all these rules to protect quarterbacks, and when it comes down to it, they don't enforce them. For the MVP, no less, getting hit in the head repeatedly, a lot of the focus has been put on protecting quarterbacks ever since Tom Brady went down a few years ago with that knee injury, missed the whole season, and now it's really been a focus for officials to protect the quarterbacks just about at all costs, I'd say. And I think Newton doesn't get the calls because he's bigger and stronger than every other quarterback, so it's different. It's more difficult for the officials to make those calls just because he doesn't react to being hit the same way that, let's say, an Aaron Rodgers does. And we talked about this a little bit, I believe it was Friday after the game, and we kind of made the comparison to soccer players in that they tend to embellish when they get tripped up, and it's not a slam on soccer, it's just the way it is. They dive and they get the calls.
Yeah,
And
so
football players shouldn't have to do that.
right, you're absolutely right. In soccer, you watch guys that um, a lot of people have a problem with the guys that fall over, they grab their ankle, they roll around, and then they get right back up. They're not limping, they're fine. Well, if you watch soccer as much as I do, or as much as you do, Mitch, you realize that a lot of times these guys that get clipped in the ankle or kicked in the shin or get knee-to-knee contact that don't fall over and continue to play don't get the calls. And that's the same case with Cam Newton. Cam's a tough guy. He's very big. He doesn't like to stay on the ground. He doesn't like to, or at least it doesn't seem like he likes to berate the referee when he doesn't get a call. He just wants to stand back up, kind of have that cocky swag about him, get back to the line of scrimmage, and beat the ball down your throat the very next play. So I do think that has a little bit to do with it, maybe a lot to do with it, is just the fact that he is tough and he is big. He doesn't like to fall, and he doesn't complain to the referees like a Tom Brady does every time he gets hit and falls over.
As far as on the field play goes, in the actual game itself, I am still pumping the brakes on the Broncos. It was a good win in the Super Bowl rematch, but it was at home. They did need to come from behind and have a little bit of luck, I'd say. So I don't know how you feel, but I'm still not willing to hand them the division.
Well, the Broncos defense is no doubt very, very good. I don't think they've missed a beat from last year to this year. They put a lot of pressure on Cam Newton. They obviously hit him hard, like we already talked about. But the offense is also very similar to last year. The Broncos did a lot with very little at the quarterback position last year. I know they had Peyton Manning, but they had a less productive Peyton Manning than in the past.
Right.
And
last year's Peyton Manning was not Peyton Manning.
Exactly, and they were still able to move the ball, and they were still able to be successful. And I think a lot of that goes on Kubiak. I think he's a very, very good coach, and is putting his quarterback in the right position to make the plays needed to win the game. So I do like the Broncos. They do play in a tough division with the Chiefs and the Raiders now, but I do think that they'll be able to make it a competitive division and make a push for the division championship.
So let's move on. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, this was just a great week of football. So I kind of just want to go through each game and touch on at least a couple of points, maybe just even 1 point that we took away from the game. Packers 27, Jags 23. Your boy Blake Bortles was picked to start the game, and for me, the Jags are still the Jags.
How are the Jags still the Jags? I mean, can you explain that a little bit?
Well, they were up, and they ended up losing the game at home in a game that you think that they should have been able to win. I mean, it did kind of look like they were the better team, but somehow Aaron Rodgers and the Packers found a way, and I just don't think that the Jags have it in them. And you seem to be the one that's on the bandwagon. So
no, I think
explain.
Well, I think you're wrong in saying that it's a game that it looked like they should have won. I mean, you're talking about the Packers. You're talking about a team that could compete for the NFC crown and
maybe not should have won, but could have won.
Yeah, they could have won, and they could have won up until the end, but they didn't get it done against one of the best teams in the NFC. To me, that doesn't mean that that they're not going to be a good team. Blake Bortles, you said last week or 2 weeks ago that Blake Bortles wasn't getting it done in your eyes. Well,
I said he's going to fall on his face. I think that's
exactly
precisely what I said.
Well, Blake Bortles threw for the second most touchdowns last year. And as far as passing yards, I think he finished 7th. So, you're all I'm sorry. David Carr actually finished 7th in touchdowns, and David Carr is a guy that you're very high on. So
Derek Carr.
I'm very sorry.
See,
David Carr would love to be talked about in that sense, but Derek Carr, right, threw for finished 7th in passing touchdowns, where Blake Bortles finished 2nd. So I just don't see how you can say that Blake Bortles isn't going to be a good quarterback.
I think a lot of it has to do with the team that's around him. I believe a lot more in what the Raiders can do than the Jags, and I think we're just going to see that play out this season. But let's keep it moving here. Ravens 13, Bills 7. Basically, these two teams have no offense, and that's about all I have to say.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this game. I was disappointed with the Bills' offense. I did think that they could get or pick up a little momentum here against the Ravens defense. But unfortunately, they didn't, and it looks like it could be a rough season for them.
Texans 23, Bears 14. I might actually like the Texans. I kind of forgot that Jadeveon Clowney was on the team and Vince Wilfork, and those two guys mix them in with J.J. Watt. That's quite a defensive line. It was entertaining to watch that game.
Yeah, so last week you said that the Texans weren't even a middle-of-the-road team, and now you're saying you kind of like them. So
yeah, no, I just had to see them play, I guess, even though the Bears are pretty bad. So I guess I should reserve judgment.
So you like the Texans after one game where they
I like
won,
the Texans more than I did last week.
but
I
you
guess.
don't like the Jaguars after giving the Packers a test.
Nah, the Jags still suck.
Okay. Well, I still think you're wrong about that. I'm going to go back to the Jaguars, actually. Look, the Jaguars, Allen Robinson was sixth out of all receivers last year in receiving yards, first in touchdowns. Allen Hurns, 24th in receiving yards, 10th in touchdowns. So that's a great 1-2 punch. Chris Ivory on their team, not quite sure what happened to him. No one really is quite sure how he ended up in the hospital and how long he's going to be out. But as soon as he comes back, he was fifth in rushing yards last year and ninth in touchdowns. And then T.J. Yeldon was 22nd in rushing touchdowns out of all running backs. So they have an incredible amount of talent on offense. And in the offseason, they added to their defense Dante Fowler, Miles Jack, Jalen Ramsey, and Tayshaun Gibson, as well as Prince Amukamara. So this is a team that's definitely on the rise and definitely has the pieces in place to be good. So I'm not quite sure how you keep going back and saying that the Jaguars aren't good.
The Jags are in San Diego this weekend. They're going to lose that game. Do you care to wager?
I don't make bets on NFL football, but I think I'm going to take the Jaguars after the Chiefs or the Chargers gave up that big lead to the Chiefs this week.
All right, there you go. A little gentleman's bet for this weekend. I got the Chargers. Ev's got the Jags. We'll come back next week and see who won. Eagles 29, Browns 10. Robert Griffin III out 8 weeks, broken bone in his, I believe it's his throwing shoulder. The Browns are donezo, Ev. That's it.
I would have told you the Browns are donezo last week. This isn't a year where the Browns are supposed to be good. The front office has made it clear. It's an overhaul. You can see by the transactions they've made. They're a young team, a ton of guys that haven't even started or hadn't even played in an NFL game that got action last week. And a bunch of draft picks coming up. They should have 2 of the top draft picks in next year's draft with theirs and the Eagles pick. So, hey, maybe we'll see Deshaun Watson and Leonard Fournette in the same backfield next year.
Buccaneers 31, Falcons 24. Huge win for the Bucs to start out the season in Atlanta. That's a big division win for them. Jameis Winston, 4 touchdowns. We ain't no puppies. We some dogs.
Jameis Winston was so fun to watch. That whole Buccaneers offense was fun to watch. Mike Evans is such a great receiver. Doug Martin had a decent game. Charles Sims even came out of the backfield to catch a nice touchdown pass where he broke some tackles and spun into the end zone. So I do really like the Buccaneers. They're a team that if you read my picks actually on my website from week 1, you noticed that I'm pretty high on the Buccaneers, and I'll continue to do so. So, yeah, great win for the Bucs.
The Vikings, I think, got a little bit lucky playing the Tennessee Titans. They come away with a 25-16 win. And the Vikings, they're going to have to rely on defense. They decided to start Sean Hill over Sam Bradford in week 1. And 2 defensive touchdowns really saved the day for the Vikes.
Yeah, they definitely will have to rely on defense. And I'm interested to see what happens when Sam Bradford eventually takes the reins there in Minnesota. My understanding is that he didn't start in week 1 because he wasn't comfortable with the protections. I'm not much of a quarterbacks coach or an offensive line coach, but I know enough to understand that if you're not sure where guys are going to be coming from or from the defense, then you probably shouldn't be playing quarterback. So
yeah.
So that's okay. I mean, I think he'll end up with the reins, and I'll be interested to see how he passes the ball and moves the Vikings offense. But for now, absolutely, they'll have to rely on defense.
The Bengals squeaked by the Jets 23-22. Solid road win. Didn't get to see much of the game. Don't have much to say. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a solid win against a pretty good Jets defense on the road. Like exactly like you said. Sorry for repeating you, but um, I think the Bengals proved to a lot of people that they can play without Sanu and Marvin Jones. So I will be interested to see how they match up with the Steelers. And actually, we get to find out in just a couple days as they play on Sunday. So uh, I can't wait to see the Bengals one more week to really figure out what they're made of. But they did look good.
The Raiders have the Oakland Raiders, the ballsiest call of week 1, going for 2, under a minute to go on the road in the Superdome, and they win 35-34.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. As it was happening, I picked the Raiders to win this one, and it was looking bad, but they ended up coming back and getting within a field goal or an extra point away from tying the game. And Jack Del Rio sends the offense out onto the field.
And you were second guessing at this point. You texted me and said, "Wow, this is pretty stupid."
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the call. That's a tough division to play in, especially after the Broncos took it to the Panthers. So, yeah, to go for 2 in a game that you need to win was gutsy and definitely a high risk play, but they got the high reward. They threw up a 50-50 ball to Michael Crabtree. Actually, with him being the athletic, tall receiver that he is, it was probably more like a 55-45 ball in his favor, and he brought it down. So Jack Del Rio doesn't care what I have to say. His team won, and they're moving on to week 2 with a 1-0 record.
Staying in that AFC West, the Chiefs rally. They were down 21-3 at halftime. They score 17 in the fourth quarter, end up winning it in overtime, 33-27. And Ev, I was pissed. I had the Chiefs -7 and that stupid overtime rule where if you score a touchdown on the first drive, the game's over. It came back and bit me.
Yeah, I can see where that can be frustrating, especially for college football enthusiasts like yourself. I don't mind the NFL rule or the NFL overtime rule. I think it's fine. If you score a touchdown, you have to drive all the way down the field to do so. You deserve to win. Whereas if you kick a field goal, the other team does get a chance. So I think it's fair enough. And sorry that they didn't get to kick the extra point and help you get that 7-point spread. But
yeah, I mean, seriously, at least just let him kick the extra point.
Yeah, just do it for Mitch.
Yeah, do it for me.
Yeah, but I think the story out of that game is Keenan Allen going down with a knee injury, out for the year. So
yeah,
he's a late first round or definite second round fantasy pick, and a lot of fantasy owners are upset that injury bug has hit them early on. And I do feel bad for the guy. Obviously, you never want to see a guy go out for the year. But the Chargers did okay in the first half, at least without him. So I'll be interested to see how they do next week.
Another late winner. The Seahawks somehow just find a way. It's remarkable the way that they can win these late games. I really think that they're the Kansas City Royals of football. I mean, you look at the home field advantage. The way that they can hold a lead or just kind of hang around and go win it late. Russell Wilson found a way, and Seahawks come away with a 12-10 victory over the Dolphins. What did you see in that one?
Well, I didn't see much offense. I saw a great Seahawks defense like we normally do. They frustrated Ryan Tannehill throughout the whole game, kind of spoiled Arian Foster's debut there in Miami. So it'd be interesting to see if they can score points. They do have some weapons. I like the receivers in Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett, and you can never count out Russell Wilson. So they'll have to score points to keep up in the division, but their defense is obviously very stout and should keep them in a lot of games.
My Detroit Lions get a 39-35 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. Very strange finish to the game if you saw that kickoff where it ended up being a safety for the Lions there. But Matt Stafford just came out. My boy, Matt Stafford, he came out and led his team to victory, had a great game, and did it when it mattered most. When the Lions needed to score, he was there, and that included the eventual game-winning drive where he set up Matt Prater for the game-winning field goal. Prater had actually missed the extra point just a few minutes before that put the Lions behind the 8 ball. They'd scored to go up 34-28. He missed that extra point. Colts come down, make it 35-34, and the Lions needed to score. Matt Stafford got it done. He got in the face of some receivers, which is cool to see. He's really taking ownership of that offense. And, yeah, I mean, go Lions.
Yeah, so after 1 week, where do you see the Lions finishing?
It is just 1 week, and they did play one of the worst teams in the league, so I'm going to reserve judgment, but for an opening week game, I liked what I saw for the most part. Mainly that the offense was able to score when they needed to. Really, every time the Colts put points on the board, the Lions came back down, answered, kept the distance, and took the lead when they needed to. So that's what I like to see most. The defense has a lot of work to be done. And, you know, even against a Colts team that I think is really pretty bad and could be on the Browns level if they didn't have Andrew Luck. So the Lions definitely have stuff to work on. It's just exciting when they win.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Colts offense. I like T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief quite a bit. As far as the running game goes, that's going to struggle. Their offense is going to have to keep them in games, and their defense is, like you said, pretty awful. So good luck to the Colts this year.
In a game that I'm sure you were watching closely, the Giants snatch a 20-19 win in Dallas. Like the Bucs, this is a big division win on the road to start the season. What'd you see from your division, your NFC East pick to win the division, and a team that you seem to be really rooting for in the Cowboys?
Yeah, I like the Cowboys a lot this year. I did turn on that game. It was the 4 o'clock hour, one of the 3 games in that 4 o'clock hour. So I liked what I saw from the Cowboys. You know what you're getting when you talk Giants. Their 3-headed monster at receiver did a nice job. Who was that? Sterling Shepard got a touchdown catch. He had 43 yards receiving. And Beckham Jr., of course, 75 yards. And Victor Cruz came back and scored a touchdown in his return after missing last season. So with the Giants, you know what you're getting. Okay, they're a solid offensive team, and they have a decent defense. With the Cowboys, going into the game, you had no idea what you were getting. And Dak Prescott played very well, 25 of 45, 227 yards. He hit and connected with 8 different receivers. So, when you see that from a young guy, you're very excited. And that's definitely telling. Prescott looks pretty calm all day. He ran. He had a couple good runs. What I was a little concerned about was that Elliott couldn't get much going. He did have a touchdown, but I think he rushed for under 50 yards. He might have broken 50, but he didn't get to 60. So I still like the Cowboys. They put themselves in a position almost put themselves in a position to win the game. If Terrence Williams would have gotten out of bounds instead of making a cut to the inside. Dan Bailey tore it up. 4 field goals, 4 for 4, probably could have been 5 for 5. So I still think that the Cowboys can compete in that division. I think they'll only get better as the games go on. And I think the Giants will also compete, and I think it'll be a close race down the stretch.
In the first of 2 games on Monday night, the Steelers just had their way with the Redskins. Can Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown do this all year long? Because, I mean, they were on, and they were making it look easy.
Well, they did it all year last year, when Roethlisberger was healthy, and the year before. I think they won't have any problem whatsoever continuing to do that. As long as, and we say this every week, I'm kind of getting tired of saying it, as long as Ben can stay healthy, that team is going to compete for the AFC. But their problem is going to be the New England Patriots, who, despite missing Gronkowski, despite missing Tom Brady, and despite missing a few guys on defense, still went into Carolina on Sunday night and got a win. I'm sorry, went into Arizona on Sunday night and got the win.
Yes. I almost skipped over them, but yeah, they were the Sunday night game, and I wasn't giving them much chance in Arizona, but no Brady, no problem, I guess. It's Belichick and the system and something about that team. You really do know what you're going to get, and more times than not, it's going to be a victory.
Well, if you're an NFL quarterback, I don't care if you're third string, fourth string practice quarterback, you can make short throws. Okay, you are accurate enough to be in an NFL uniform, so you can make those short throws and connect on some medium throws, and that's what the Patriots are all about. Julian Edelman runs the best routes of any receiver in the league, and he runs those short routes perfectly. He's fast and he's feisty. I mean, the guy's so short but loves the contact. So it's perfect for a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, who is very accurate, short and medium range, to just throw short pass after short pass after short pass and move the ball. Okay? They moved the ball so efficiently. They got into field goal range. Now their offense did stutter a little bit when they got closer to the end zone, but they set themselves up to win just doing the simple things right, and that's what Belichick is all about. And the Patriots just don't miss a beat.
In the second Monday night game, yuck, really. Just an awful game. 49ers 28, Rams 0. That offense looked atrocious. They didn't even dress the number 1 overall pick in Jared Goff. What happened?
It was just, like you said, a terrible game. It was boring to watch. It being so late at night, I didn't even watch the whole thing. I don't know what you say. If Blaine Gabbert and Carlos Hyde can put up 28 points on your defense, you're going to struggle. And if your offense can't score a single point against the 49ers defense, you're in trouble. Yeah. So there's not much to say about the Rams this year. They're going to have to figure something out. Or 8-8 Jeff Fisher is not going to get to 8-8 this year, and the Rams and their LA fans are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, after such a great opening weekend of football, that was really just kind of a buzzkill. I do want to mention, look at all the big road wins. Packers, Buccaneers, Vikings, Bengals, Raiders, Lions, Giants, Patriots, Steelers. All win on the road to start the season. And, I mean, wow, really, just I can't remember seeing so many teams win on the road to start a season. And maybe it's just because I haven't been paying attention to those sort of things, but it really did strike me on Sunday when I noticed all these road teams racking up W's.
Yeah, it was such a great weekend of football, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I mean, it's just going to be a great season if that keeps up. So I'm very pleased.
Before we get out of here, we kind of just drew this up earlier this afternoon before we recorded here on Tuesday night. Do we want to do players of the week throughout the season? Because I think that'd be kind of cool, just to touch on one guy who we thought really kind of killed it for his team.
Yeah, sure. Who's your player of the week?
My player of the week's got to be Matt Stafford. 31 of 39, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is huge for him. And really the leadership that he showed was the biggest part to me on that last drive. If you'd seen it, you know what I'm talking about. He got in the face of a couple different receivers, one for trying to make something happen while time was running out and instead of just going down. The other one, a total bonehead move by not just running out of bounds. He ended up falling inbounds, and Stafford let him hear about it, and he ended up orchestrating that drive and getting the Lions a victory. So he's my player of the week. And we'll probably come up with cooler names than just player of the week. But for now, Matt Stafford, Great Gatsby's player of the week.
So Great Gatsby's player of the week, and the very first week is a player from his favorite team. So that's pretty good. I guess I'll go with Robert Griffin III then to follow the trend.
Oh, man.
Just kidding. No, I'd have to go with Jameis Winston. I didn't put up a ton of numbers this week, or high numbers, I guess. He was
4
20.
touchdowns.
Well, right. He was 23 of 33 for 281 yards. So he didn't throw as much as his counterpart Matt Ryan did. I'm not sure where he ranked for the week in passing yards, but his 4 touchdowns and his leadership to get his team a week 1 win against a division opponent on the road was huge, and I think he'll continue to play well this year. So as far as leadership and big wins go, I give it to Jameis Winston.
Let's give the listeners a couple of ways that they can get into contact with us here on Suits and Laterals. First of all, if you want to email us like our listener John did and have your email read on the air, possibly, if it's good. It's got to be good. But that email address, I believe, is hello@suitsandlaterals.com.
That's correct. Mitch, where can they find you?
People can find me on Twitter at GreatGatsky, GATZKE. I love to send out sports tweets no matter what sport I'm watching. And you can also find me on Campus Press Box writing about a whole ton of college football.
Do you have a website?
I do have a website. I'm in the process of kind of revamping that whole thing. But yeah, you can also find me MitchGatsky.com.
All right. You can find me at Skilliter, Skilliter, on Twitter. You can also find me on Campus Press Box writing about who knows what, generally Kentucky football, which you probably don't want to read too much about that anyway. You can also find me on my new and improved website, evanskilliter.com. And I will mention that there, each week on Thursday, I will release my NFL picks for that coming weekend. So you can find out how I do each week. You can let me know what you think and give me some of your input as well. That's evanskilliter.com.
That's going to do it for us here. We are the Suits. Hope you enjoyed the Laterals. Evan, say goodbye to the people.
All right. Till next time, stay right and stay real.